Some of the best memories I had growing up were playing with my action figures. As a matter of fact, I still have most of the ones I had when I was still growing up. Every day when I got home from school, I used to go into my room, plop myself down, take out all my action figures that were under my bed, and start playing. I used to hide them under there so that my dad or my sisters wouldn't see me playing with them. It was embarrassing, even for a little kid. Sometimes I would be able to hear people walking outside of my door, headed towards my room, so I would take my toys and throw them under my bed as fast as I could, and then when they came in, I would act like nothing was going on. Well, nowadays, most of these action figures just stay in a box collecting dust. But as you can tell, I'm still a very big nerd, and I still collect stuff. As I've gotten older, my perspective of adulthood has changed some. What it really means to be grown up. Growing up used to mean outgrowing all this stuff. So that begs the question for me, is it okay for adults to be this engaged in fandom? You've been to conventions or seen videos of people dressed up in cosplays, going to all these different events, and you've no doubt heard criticisms from people who just don't get it.
You can, if you want, like the exact same things you liked when you were 10. But if you do, you need to grow up.
Is all this okay? Is it okay for adults to be so consumed by fictitious stories? St. Paul writes about growing up as well. In 1 Corinthians 13, he says, "When I was a child, I thought as a child, I spoke as a child. But when I became a man, I put away childish things." This verse was used in my childhood as a way of saying all this stuff is okay now, but you'll eventually get over it. Except I never did. But don't get me wrong, I did grow up. I got smarter, my life evolved, I went through stuff as I know you have as well. But I'm just as much of a nerdy guy now as I was when I was a kid back then. So is there something wrong with me? In my developing Christian days, I read a lot of C.S. Lewis. He helped sharpen my perspectives and answered a lot of my questions as a young Christian. He also entertained me as a child, not only with his Narnia series, which I know is his most popular in sort of the secular world, but also his space trilogy too. Needless to say, he's somebody that I admire a lot. As I was entering my late teens, early 20s, I was still waiting to outgrow all of my nerdiness and collecting things and late night debates with friends arguing over who would win, Goku or Superman. I felt silly. I'm an adult, I'm paying taxes, I live on my own, I contribute to my community, and here I am still have not put away childish things. C.S. Lewis changed my perspective of that as well. One day when I was reading one of his essays, you know how you just read old dead guys' essays from time to time, right? And one of his essays, he was telling this story. When I was 10, I read fairy tales in secret and would have been ashamed if I had been found doing so. Now that I am 50, I read them openly. When I became a man, I put away childish things, including the fear of childishness and the desire to be very grown up. When I first read this, it absolutely just blew my mind. When I was a kid, I was so embarrassed at being discovered playing with action figures, even though it was perfectly acceptable to be doing so. And C.S. Lewis was so embarrassed to be reading fairy tale stories when he was a kid. This was something I just related to so strongly, and maybe you do too. Part of growing up and becoming a man or a woman is also putting away the fear of childishness. Jesus also talks a little bit about where your mindset, even as a man or a woman, needs to be. Truly, I tell you, unless you change and become like little children, you will never enter the kingdom of God. Looks like I'm doing pretty good so far. To put some context of what was happening when Jesus said this, some of his disciples were arguing about stupid crap like hierarchy in heaven. When Jesus said, "Become like little children," he means do not desire status. Don't worry about open distinctions, what you wear, what you look like. Free from malice, be teachable, and depend on your parents. For us, depend on God. I may have all this crap on my walls, and I could talk for hours about fictional stories and characters, but there is a difference between being childlike, which is what Jesus Christ told us to be, and being childish. If all of this stuff were to interfere with my relationship with my girlfriend, with my friends, my mental health, my responsibilities as an adult, as a man, I would get rid of it. As long as your fandom doesn't control you or dictate your life, as long as you're not obsessed with it to the point of forgoing all other responsibilities, you're fine. And be aware that not all fandoms look the way mine does. Sometimes instead of a nerdy anime shirt, it could be a sports jersey. As long as you balance all this stuff with your responsibilities in adulthood, you're not doing anything wrong. Just make sure that you have a balance, that your fandom isn't toxic, and that it benefits not only you, but the people around you. To end this video off on, I'd like to leave you with another quote from a very good dead man. Fairy tales are more than true, not because they tell us dragons exist, but because they tell us dragons can be beaten. If you enjoyed this video, make sure to leave me a like, it helps me out a lot, and leave me a comment down below letting me know what you think of fandoms. If you enjoyed it enough, consider subscribing for more great content like this. As always, I appreciate you watching, and I'll catch you in my next video. Take care.